going to show you tonight how to make one of these really cool never-ending cards. I think these are really good fun, and I thought we'd decorate it up in time for Father's Day, which is not this Sunday but the Sunday after. So let me just give you a quick preview of what we're going to be making. So this is a 6 by 6 inch card, okay, and if you open it up here, you then get another view, and then we open it up like so, and then we open it up again, and then we come across like that, hence the never-ending card. So that's what we're going to make tonight, but I thought we'd concentrate on doing the 6 by 6 inch one, but I have also got an 8 inch one that I made as well that I just wanted to show you, so you can upscale it if you want to or not. Now this one I've done slightly different. I've just made a little enclosure to go on the front here. I've actually put some magnets here, so that just sort of clips into place, and let's just pop that to one side. But again, we'll sort of open up, and on this one, because I've made it bigger, I've done it so that you can add some photos if you wanted to, and these will take 4 by 4, and then we'll just fold that back like so. There we go, and then you can put on other images and journaling or words and stuff like that, and then we come back again, and you've got another 2 squares there again for photos, and you can add in your fancy bits and pieces that you want to, and then you open it up and you're back to the beginning again. Now let me just put these to one side for a minute, and then I can just explain to you the subtle differences I've done. So here we are, you can see the two, let's put it like that way, there we are, you can see the 2 sizes. Okay, now this one I've actually taken a big square, 8 by 8 square, and I've actually cut it down, but you get the whole image on the front on that one. And then I've just put a contrasting one on there for the magnet holder, okay. And then on this one, as you can see here, I've just done a strip that goes across the middle here, because it picks up here, it says like the toolbox and stuff like that, and then I've just done, you know, sort of complemented it with different coloured papers and stuff. So that's what we're going to be making tonight, one of these. So I'm just going to pop that to one side, okay. Let's just say a quick, I think we've got Jackie is with us, so welcome Jackie. Say or give me a quick hi, that would be lovely. Now the papers that I'm using tonight, because I'm still doing my, well, I'm desperately trying to sort of use up some of my stash. So last year I made a nice little toolbox with a little album that went inside, using the Mr. Fix-It and the garage papers from Minte. Hi Jackie, lovely, thank you. So I'm just going back into my stash really, and just pulling out some bits and pieces of papers and stuff that I've got that I'm going to be using. Now this is a little 6 by 8 pad, which I've got some odd sheets here that I've sort of got left over from my project, so I'm going to have a go at using some of those. And I did find a couple of scraps here. I mean, I just love the papers. I mean, they're just so grungy, really lovely for Father's Day. And I quite like this picture as well on this 12 by 12. Now obviously when you buy a lot of the 12 by 12 papers, like for scrapbooking, this is ideal if you wanted to put a photo in the middle, but I'm going to sort of trim off some of this at the bottom and use that to decorate the front of the card, because it's got quite a lot of stuff going on here, which I think would be quite cool to use. So that's what we're going to do. But before we get to the decorating bit, which is a fun bit, but it's always the most indecisive bit for me, because I always have it, I don't know about you, but I always go, oh, not sure which papers to use and all the rest of it. But there we are. We'll come to that in a minute. Okay, let's crack on then. So what you're going to need, if you are doing this with me, is 6 by 6 inch paper function, but I just think they look really cool. So we're going to start off first. Here we are with my 6-inch square, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to score on here 1/4 of the 6, so that's 1.5 inches. Okay, so I'm going to come in 1.5 inches coming down there like so, and then I'm going to come in 1.5 inches on the other end. Okay, so let me just hold that up to the camera so you can see. Here you've got the little dents in there, okay, and little bumps on the other side, and we're going to repeat that for exactly the same. Okay, so 1.5, and then we're going to crack in on 1.5 on that side. Okay, and that is all our scoring. That's all we need to do. Now the next thing that we're going to do is that we're actually going to cut these in half, going across where we've scored. So we're not coming down lengthways, we're coming across where we've done those scores. Okay, so let me just grab my big ruler. Oops, goodness me. Here we go. Right, so we know it's 6-inch square, so we're going to trim down and cut down the middle at 3 inches. Let me just focus this. Now I quite like these rulers. They're quite handy. These are like what we call, well, the company name I think is Omni Grids, but they're like quilting rulers. So I find these quite handy because it gives me an opportunity to make sure I've lined up everything all the way around. So I'm just going to cut down the middle like so. So that leaves me with 2 parts. Okay, so you can see the way that I've cut that. All right, so we've got the score lines coming down there. It's given me 2 parts like so, and I'm going to repeat exactly the same on the other one. Okay, and we're just going to come across, and we're going to do 3 inches across here. Now if I was making the 8x8, okay, I would obviously score 2 inches coming in and then obviously I would cut that in half at the 4, just to give you a heads up if you wanted to make the bigger one. All right, now it looks really complicated when you put the card together, but honest to goodness it isn't. Okay, and I think the easiest way is how you lay it out on your desk, and then when you're going to sort of prep it up ready. So what I'm going to do is put 2 pieces together like so. So I've got the score lines coming down either side, and then the other 2 pieces, let's just move the red line of tape out of the way, I'm going to put on the other side. Okay, so what will happen is that this piece and this piece will come onto this back piece here. Okay, but what we need to do is we need to put where the red line of tape is going to go. So I'm just making sure I'm lining that up. Now you can do this one of 2 ways. Okay, now where this score line is coming in, I'm just going to put a tiny little pencil mark, just so I know that that red line of tape has got to go into that square. And we'll just line that up like that, and just make sure I've got that coming to the top like so. And I'm just going to put a tiny little pencil mark there. I'm just going to put a little cross on there so that you can see where I'm putting that, and then we're going to do the same on the other side. Just move those over for the minute. There we go. I'm just going to line that up there. There's my score line. So that's the square that I'm going to put it in, and then we're just going to line that up at the bottom there. And don't panic if you're not exact. It's just a rough estimate as to where you're going to pop this. Okay, so we don't need these 2 bits for a minute. So what we're going to do is we're going to put some red liner tape in these little squares in these top corners. So I've just got some, I think this is 9mm, but that's fine. So we're just going to add our red liner tape. So I'm just going to put it to the edge, give it a quick snip like so. Now, just to let you know, we do sell the red liner tape on our shop, craftywafty.co.uk. We do from 3 millimeters up to 25 millimeters, and you get 50 meters on the roll. So this stuff lasts forever, unless of course you're like me and you make far too many albums, etc., in which case, you know, but it's a consumable, isn't it? Yes, we do sell it on the shop. Okay, and I'm just going to put it here. So I've just put this red tape on just before that little pencil line. Okay, it's just there as a guide. So we're just going to tuck that on like so, like that. Okay, and then I'm going to swap these round. So I'm just going to put that at the top, bring this one to the bottom. So I've got the squares at the bottom that I'm going to do, and let's just tuck that in there, pop that on there. Whoops. Okay, and just put another little one like so. That's it, we're nearly done. And this is all the red tape that we're going to need once we've done this other corner like so. There we are, just snip that. Okay, and the final one we're just doing is just on the bottom here. Here we are. Okay, and just give that a little snip on there. Right, we're going to pop that out of the way. I'm just going to get my little burny burnish. I'm just going to give that a quick, make sure that that red liner tape is down there. Wonderful. Okay, so let's just bring back our two pieces that were on the side. So here we are. We've got that one there, and we've got that one. Okay, and let's just pop those on there like so. Right, now the easiest way that I found to do these, okay, is to do one side first, and then we'll come in and do the other side. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to make it easier for you. On this corner here, I'm just putting little crosses in the corners, okay, on the outside, because what it means is that this corner is going to sit directly onto that corner, which will match up with the top one, and then this other one will come in where I've put the cross on there, and that will do exactly the same, and that is what is going to put our card together. Okay, so just by putting those little crosses on there, you can see what we're doing. So I'm just going to peel off the red liner tape, and I'm going to do one corner at a time. Okay, and what you want to do is make sure that this edge on this corner fits snugly to that edge in that corner there. Okay, so we're just overlapping it, and we're just making sure that that sits like so. Now, if you're a little uneasy about doing this, and put a little bit of glue on your red liner tape, and then at least then you can move it about a bit if you need to. Okay, so just to bear that in mind. And then I'm going to come and do this corner. So I'm doing the two corners in front like so. Let's take the red liner tape off, and again this edge is going to line in round with this one. So I'm just going to pop that into the corner like so, making sure that's butts up against that. Okay, there we are. And then what I'm going to do is turn the whole thing 180 degrees round. So underneath there you can see that I've got the other piece, and then I'm just going to attach that corner onto there, and then we'll do the last one. So we'll just take these off. And as I said, this album comes together really well. Card. It's because I've been making an album today, and I've got album on my brain. Been working on a new Craftywafty along project, which will be coming out in about, hopefully in about 2 weeks time. So card I meant to say. What you like, right? Okay, and we're just going to line that on there so that sticks on there. Okay, and then the last one is going to just peel off, and that hopefully should just lie nice and straight into that corner. So this red liner tape sticks to everything. I say every time we use the stuff, but it is really good stuff. Okay, right, moment of truth now then. We're going to see if it actually works. So this is my front, so I'm actually going to write on it front, because trust me, when you start to fold this thing, then you end up losing what is the front and what is not. So here we go. So I'm going to fold this back. Now as I fold this back, you can see it's giving me a little bit of tension there. It's because I've not creased down. So what I'm going to do is just gently, for the minute, is just fold one side back, and I'm just going to burnish along there. Okay, I picked up some glue there. Right, and then I'm going to fold that back, and then I'm just going to come back and do it on the other side. Okay, like so. So it's just come back. So there we are, back to the front, and then we're going to come in this bit. So this is our, what I would call your page 2, really. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to name that page 2. So when I come to decorate it, I know what I'm talking about. And then I'm going to bring that round, and again I've got that same tension issue there, so I'm just going to fold that back, and I'm going to crease down like so. Let's fold that back, and then I'm going to come back and do exactly the same. Here we are. Alright, so that is our page 2. That's going to fold back, and then that will fold round. So let's just make sure we've got that right. So let's come right back to the beginning again. See, this is why you have to write it all on the front, so you know which side is which. Right, so there's the front. That's page 2. This one opens up. This is now going to be page 3. So let's just crease those lines in. Page 3, page 3, and then we're going to come back, and this will be your page 4. Page 4, page 4. Okay, and then when you fold that back again, that brings you back to the front. And that, to be honest, is the card already made. And then it is just a case then of going in and decorating it. Now, a couple of things that I will just say, that if you find that as you're folding it and opening it, if for some reason it's catching or it's not quite, perhaps you haven't got your squares quite lined up. So I can see here that this edge here is just catching a little bit on there. Then what I might do is just take a little slither off that, just to make it flow a lot easier. And then that one folds back again, and that one comes through. So if you find that it is just catching just a fraction, then you can take a little slither off. It won't hurt it. I'm just looking at this, and I'm thinking I might just take a little slither off of this one, just to help that flow. With all the best intentions in the world, you know what it's like when you're cutting paper, and especially if you're cutting it by hand, if you haven't quite got it right, that's it. And it'll probably just need that tiny little slither off to there we go. So front. See, now that sits so much better on that one. That one folds over, that one folds over, that one, I can see that on this one, this edge catches just a fraction. So I'm literally just taking a tiny, tiny slither off. And that should help it flow better. That's it. There's my plate. There we go. Right. Okay. And then where are we? We're on page 2, page 3, and we're back to the front. There we go. Okay, so that sits so much better now as that goes backwards and forwards. There's our front there. Okay, so page 3, page 4, and then back to the front. Okay, so decorating now then. One thing I do need to point out to you is that if you're giving this card to whoever, okay, then the idea is that they hold it obviously in front of them, and as they open it up, all the images are going to be the right way up, okay? And so when they open that up, the images are still the same, and the images are still the same on the back page, and then you come back round to the front. However, if I flip this over, you'll see that on the very back, the images are upside down and the wrong way round, okay? So when you come to decorate, just bear that in mind, okay, that you are putting all the images facing, so you are holding it in your hand as you're working your way through, okay? So again, like so, and there's the page that is upside down when it's on the back, but obviously when you're opening it and going through it, before you come back to the beginning, then you're back to where the image is up the right way. But if you turn it over, you can see it's upside down. All right, so just to bear that in mind, okay, when you're coming to do your decorating. Okay, so let's have a little play at decorating this then. So my initial thought was to cut some of this image out and have it coming across the two bits at the front. So let me just pop that up there. All right. Now I'm just looking at here now, obviously that strip is a lot longer, so I need to sort of think about where I want to sort of cut down my image and what part of that I want to go in. So depending on whether, you know, as I said, if it's for a male or it's for Father's Day, you know, if they're more into sort of toys and bikes and stuff like that, then I might come a bit further up this way. They like listening to their music and stuff, I might come down that way a bit, but whatever you want to do, that's fine. You know, it depends on the papers that you're using. So I'm going to trim off some of this. Let me just pop that little one out of the way. So your measurements for these, let me just get my ruler. Your measurements for here, because this is going to sit, this half is 3 inches by 3 inch square. Okay, just double check. So I want to come in and have an 1/8 of an inch black edge all round. So that means I'm going to have to cut this at 2 3/4. So I'm just going to cut a strip all the way along. So we'll just line that up like so. There we go. Let's just pop that out of the way for the minute. There we are. And I'm just going to turn that round. I'm just going to take this white edge off. 2 3/4. Okay. Okay, pop that in there. And then we're going to turn that round as well. So now I just need to sort of make up my mind what sort of image I'm going to have going across. I quite like the clock. You see here we've got a pipe. I'm not overly fussed about the pipe, so I might just come down, maybe incorporate the incorporate the whole of the clock, and then I'll just come down and cut just that end bit off. So let's just trim that. Right, let's use a slightly smaller ruler for this now, and then we can start putting this together. What I love about these papers is that the collection that I've made this one out of, this one is the actual garage paper, but it also has a bit of Mr. Fix-It in it, and the 8x8 one was all Mr. Fix-It, so you can have a little look. We've also got on the shop Rust and Revs by 49 and Market, and I love those papers as well. They're just so cool and would really lend themselves to a Father's Day card. Oh, excuse me. Okay, now I'm coming in because I want the image to go right the way across my card. Let's just pop that there. I'm going to cut this first square at 2 3/4, like so. So that one will sit there, and then I'm going to come in again and cut 2 3/4. So I'll just line that up. That's nice and square. There we go. Okay, and then that will go on there. So you can see that cutting it like that, you can see that the image goes right the way across. I'm not going to throw this bit away because that's got quite a nice bit of detail, and as we go through the card you'll see that there's like a little square, so we might be able to utilise that. So I'm just going to pop those bits up there out the way. Okay, now I want something to contrast with that. Now I've done already pre-cut out my wording. Now depending on the size of your wording, if you've got dies and that, will determine what you want. So I've got my Best Dad there, I've got it in the black and the blue. So I'm just going to get these off my little posty stickies, just put them on there out the way, tuck those out there. So depending on what colours I put on there, or I could sort of mount them one on top of the other, but we're just going to put these up here just to remind me that I need to pop those on. So I'm just getting that front page done first. So this has got some nice sort of grey going on in there, so I'm going to have a little look and see what I've got in my scraps. See, the blue there is going to be a bit too dark, although that is a little bit grungy. Let's have a little look. I think I've got some sheets here. Let's have a quick little look in here. I've got some browns. See, I quite like that because it picks up a little bit of the rust that's off the wheel, so that could be a possibility. And let's have another little look. You see that one again, this has got sort of blue with a bit of rust hint on it, so I'm just going to pull that one out. Let's have a little look. See that one, although it's grey, it's a little bit too much. I quite like the blue actually, so let's go with the blue. So these measurements that we're doing are going to be 2 3/4 by 1 1/4, because this gap here is 1 1/2. So I want to cut that 1 1/4. So I'm just going to cut some strips of this by 1 1/4. So I'll just come down like so. 1 1/4, that's it. Measure twice, cut once, as they say. Right, let's just bring that along. Here we go. I'm just going to check. Yeah. And then obviously our squares were cut at 2 3/4, so that would be by 2 3/4. Now, if I was doing patterned paper, coming along coming along here and I want the flow to go, I will do the same, although this doesn't really have a sort of pattern, but it's sort of, it's, you know, I'm going to cut it like I did the images, so at least it will flow across the card. So that is 2 3/4, and then we're going to do the same again, 2 3/4, and this is really how I did the front on here. When I cut these, I made sure that the pattern followed all the way through and across, just to give it that really lovely flow of the image. I'll just line this up, 2 3/4. Okay, so that's that one on there. I'm going to pop that bit on the end there, and then I'm just going to cut again 1 1/4. So this is really good, these little cards, for using up any scraps that you've got. Often or not, when we're cutting off bits and pieces, we do have scraps to use, but this is all good. Right, and then we're going to do exactly the same again, 2 3/4 on the top. So there we are. I'll just put that on there, and I'm going to cut again 2 3/4. So just try and sort out 2 3/4. There we go. Lovely. Right, I'm just going to hold on to that bit as well. Okay, so that is our front page done. So I'm going to distress ink. Now, if you want to do any faux stitching or anything like that on your pieces before you stick them down, now's the time to do that. But I'm just going to go around and ink these. I'm using the black soot distress ink. Now, I do believe that I think we still have got some Minte Mr. Fix-It and Garage in the shop. So do pop along and have a little look if you quite like this range. But as I said earlier, we do have the new stuff as well in from 49er Market, the Rust and Revs. So you know, there's plenty of choice on there. Okay, all right. So there we go. So these are those bits done, and then I just need to ink round our images. And the reason I'm doing this is just to cover up the white core bit of the card, so it just helps the card to sort of blend in. It doesn't stand out like a sore thumb against the black. I'm just gonna pop around and do this. Here we go. Lovely. Okay, and I'm actually going to stick these down now before we move on to our next page. I will come back and do the best dad bit at the end, but for now I just need to get these stuck on. So I'm just using a bit of bookbinding glue. We don't need a lot of that on here. I'll just centre that in our square. I always put the middle ones in first, and then that gives me a guideline for the top and the bottom. I'm just making sure that I've got that 1/8 of an inch going round the image. There we go. And we'll just pop that on there. Again, I'm just making sure now that this second one, that it lines up like so. And then we've got the equal distance from the centre. And now I can just pop on the other ones at the bottom and the top. And just lining that up. So this is what I quite like about these cards. They look, I mean, they look real, well, they are fun, aren't they? You know, and people will go, well, but how did you do that? And you go, it's magic, it's magic. Especially for a kid's birthday card as well. Can you imagine making one of these for a kiddie's birthday card? I think they'll take them forever, you know, try and work out how it's done and that. It's such a simple idea, but so effective. Here we go. Right. Pop that one on like so. And then our final one. Whoops. Nearly lost it. There we go. Right, I'm just going to pop that one on there. So that is our front page done. Okay. Now, moving on to our next page, page 2, you'll notice that page 2, you've got these two main squares here, but you've also got what is represented by little squares here. But this bit down here is also the image that is going to come up from page 3. And because when you fold page 3, you just need to be wary that whatever colour, whatever you're going to put on page 3 is sort of going to blend in with this page. So if I show you what I mean on here, so when I fold this open here, you can see here that I've tried to sort of blend in the colours, and there's nothing standing out right. That doesn't not sort of link in a little bit with this because we've got the lights and stuff. So I've tried to sort of coordinate as best I can for doing that. And on this one, again, you can see the two images I've taken from the top and I've brought it right down onto that bottom card as well. Now, you can, if you want to, like I did in the bigger 8x8, put photos on if you want to. You know, the choice is yours, but I'm just going to decorate these with all the papers, and then we can sort of take it from there. So I have got my little little bag here. Now on one of the 12x12 sheets, they had these little 3x4 cards, which are ideal. You know, they'll sort of sit on there and they'll just need sort of trimming down. But if my dad was into motorbikes, then I might very well use that and trim off a little bit. I've got something with pipes on it. Oh, excuse me, I've got a tickle in my throat. If it's a real workman, you know, there's a toolbox there, so I might use the toolbox perhaps. I love this one. What happens in the garage stays in the garage. I think that's quite funky. In fact, those two sort of go quite nicely because they've got that sort of like the rust colour at the top, and then you've got the white and then the blue at the bottom. So I might possibly use those two together, and then I can pick up the rust or the blue to go in on the background. Let's just see if there was anything else. There's one that's all blue there. Now I think I'm going to stick with those two for here. Now obviously I need to trim these down to fit on the 3x3 square. So let's just have a little play with these. So I've got my ruler. So when I do anything like this, I do sort of look out. I've got to come down 2 3/4. So I sort of look at where my 2 3/4 is, and I try and centre that roughly to where I think the image is going to fit the best. It is a bit tight, but I think we can do that. So I'm going to trim this down. But this really all depends on your papers, to be fair. So don't worry about that because I'm going to trim that on there, and then I can come back and do a 2 3/4. 2 3/4 depth, measure twice, cut once. I nearly cut it at 5/8. Right, let's just steady that. That moved. There we go. Okay, so we've just managed to get the little suitcase in at the bottom, and now I need to take a little bit off the top and the bottom there to try and do that. So my 2 3/4, so I'm going to lose either a lot of the suitcase or I'm going to lose some of the tool. So again, I suppose it's, you know, I think, well, if I come across the top of that, you can see that that is a spirit level, and then we get the image of the suitcase. So let's come down on that one first of all, and we'll just trim this off. I'm going to come down just a little bit, just take that top edge off there, and then we'll come round and we'll do that. So 2 3/4, that's quite a lot of the suitcase. I really want to keep the hammer in, but I think if I come across that, I think we'll probably stick it there. Have I got any of that blue showing? No. Right. I'll come that down just a bit further on the hammer. So we just get the hammer in. There we go. This is the thing, isn't it? When you're using up, it's not, still not quite going to go, but we'll get a bit of the handle on the suitcase maybe. Let's have a little look. Okay. Right, well that's sort of cutting on there, but I think if I cut that one down too much, I think we'll just get the image of the what's in the garage stays in the garage, which is the main important thing that I want on there anyway. So let's go with that. So I'm going to cut right across that bottom bit for the minute. Let's do this side. 2 3/4. Like so. It's just utilising what we've got really, but this is what we've got to play with, so that's what we're going to do. Which is a shame because you sort of lose the pipes a bit, but it's the message more than anything that I'm after. And 2 3/4, so we'll come in just a little bit on that one, and then whoops, stuck round, and then we'll turn that round. Here we go, 2 3/4. Now this does still have a little hint of the blue, so we might be able to get away with using the blue. So I'm just gonna, so that goes on there. What happens in the garage stays in the garage. Okay, and then whatever my image is going to be on there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stick these two down first, then I'm going to do page 3 image, and then I'm going to come back and finish that off, because I just want to make sure that it all links in, or it doesn't stand out like a sore thumb. So let's just ink round. There we go, and we're just going to do same on here. There we go. I'm just going to pop that on, so I'm going to glue these down now. And then we can, oh come on glue, might have to get a new glue out at this rate. Right, let's pop that on. There we go. Hold that in place, that's it. Right, and then we're just going to put this next one on like so. Here we go. And we're going to pop that one on there. Okay, so we've got, let's put that on there. There we are. Right. Okay, so on to our page 3, because we'll come back to page 2 in a minute. So on our page 3, let's turn that over. So obviously that's blank, but when you have your, oops, come back here. But when this comes back on there, I'm going to need colours that are going to sort of almost match in with what we've got here. So let's just have a little look, see what I've got. Now I've got this quite nice rusty blue, if I want to put an image on there, or what I might decide is to put like a background on there, and then we'll have right now, see that image on there. Is that going to, let's try and sort of tuck that in. Is that going to work underneath that? That might very well do, because it sort of picks up a bit of the blue and the colours there, and on that side, let's just tuck that in there. If that was in underneath, you sort of got the brown that picks up in there. So we might very well use this one. But what I want is more of the bike coming across, and then we've got the little tape measure. So that's not gonna, so let's cut it and have a little look and see what it looks like before we make a decision. So I'm just gonna trim off this end. Like so. Where are we? There we go, line it up. Okay, and I need this to be 2 3/4. So I'm going to take some off the top and see just what that gives me. A liner. You still get a bit of the bike showing, but I quite like the dumbbells in there. So right, so that should be, if I just slide that in underneath, is that going to go? That's it, let's just tuck that in there. So if that's coming out like that, and then we'll be trimming off some of that, then I think that will work perfect. Okay, and then we've got another image coming across on that one. So I'm going to cut it from this side first, because I don't want that pipe on the end. So we'll cut our 2 3/4 on here, 2 3/4 inch squares, line it up. There we go. So you can see that it doesn't take that long to put these together. I think what takes the longest is the decision making. So as to how you're going to decorate it. But I think this will look fab. So that's just taken that pipe off completely, which is great because I didn't want that on there. So now I've just got those tucked in underneath there, I can come back to page 2 and we can do the squares, because these squares you won't see when you fold over onto page 3. So looking at the colours, let's see what else I've got in my little scrap box. I've got strip here. Now that might work because that sort of picks up the blues. Or we've got this rusty on the other side. That might work better. Let's go with a bit of contrast. I think we'll go with the rusty floor. I'll show the blues. You see, the blues look lovely actually because it sort of matches in. I'm going to stick with the blue. Right, so this again, we're cutting it down to 1 1/4. Here we are, just line this up, 1 1/4. Go, and then the squares are going to be 1 1/4 as well, and we can get, so if I'm clever enough, we can go 1 there, have the pattern following all the way along. We come the next one, 1 1/4. Let's line that up, 1 1/4. There we go, that's 2. And then we'll come down to here, 1 1/4. So at least you get some sort of pattern going across. That's 3. And the final one on this corner here. 1¼ where are we? Let's line you up. Okay, and that is going to be our image there. So now what I need to do is ink around these and stick these 4 down. So we'll just do that. 4, and that went that way. 3, 4, that went on that way, like so. And then we've got this one, 2, 3, 4. Take that last little bit of white off there. There we go. And then our final square. I just love using the distress inks. It really gives it that sort of grungy look, which is what we're after for this particular card. And here we are. So we're just going to stick our little squares down. And again, as I'm sticking these down, I'm trying to line these up. So with the top of our card as that comes along there, but keeping up 1/8 of an inch all the way round. And we're going to do the bottom one, like so. And then our last 2, and then we can move on to onto our next page. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, and the final one, number 4. That's it. Glued on my glue. Okay. So that is our page 2 done. And now we'll open for page 3. Okay, now we've already sorted out these, so we will ink these and stick these 2 down, and then we've just got to come up with some other little squares on there as well. Now obviously I'm just putting patterned papers on all my squares, but you can, as I said earlier, you can put photos on instead. You might want to do some journaling, maybe a photo of your dad or the man in your life, and maybe put a photo with a little bit of journaling, or you could just get the family to write little messages on there. It's really up to you, but I just thought I'd just show you how to do these. But I do love this range. Okay, here we go. That's our first one on. And then we'll just do the second one. So this is page 3. There we are. Okay, and now we just need to pick up some colours that are going to come there. So because I did blue on the other one, although there is a lot of blue there, I'd like to pick up some of this brown, sort of rusty colour. Let's have a little look, see if I've got anything in my book that will go with that. So we have got this. This is quite nice. The sort of rusty colour. That definitely doesn't go. What else have we got? We've got the stripy blue. Maybe not. We've got, no, we've got some wood effect there. Now that goes quite nice because that sort of picks up the wood on our tape measure going across. So I think I might use some of that actually. So let's just take that page out. And then we can add a bit of the wood on there. And because the grains go in, there's slightly different shades within this grain here. But what I'm going to try and do is cut off the top and try and utilise that going right the way through, so it gives it a bit of a... Hi Deborah, nice for you to join us. How are you? I hope you're all good. Let's just pop this on here. I will get round to putting up the cutting and scoring instructions for this. That's my job for tomorrow, is to write up all my instructions and everything, so I'll pop that on, although this wasn't like an official Crafty Wafty along, but I'll write up the measurements and everything, and obviously the measurements of the pattern papers and stuff that I've used. Oh, that's good to hear, Deborah, lovely, bless you. So just to catch you up, we're just sort of decorating our little never-ending card, and this will be posted, obviously it will go onto Facebook for 30 days, and then I will get it posted up onto YouTube as well, so if you've missed it, then obviously you can then pop over and find it all there. Okay, so I'm just doing number 3, and then here we go. I'm liking the wood on that. I think that looks really, really effective. Right, okay, it's just line up like so. And then we're just going to pop our 4th one on there. There we are. Now I can see I've got a couple of little pencil marks there from when I marked it up earlier. So let's just rub those off, just to, there we go, just because you can see that. Right, okay, right, so let's just see how that was going round that way. That was it, okay, and these were going that way to keep the grain going the same way. Right, I'm going to distress ink these, and then we're going to get these glued on. So as I was saying earlier, I've been working on a new Crafty Wafty along album, which I'm really looking forward to showing you. It's what I'm calling it my mindfulness album. And it's something that it's a project that you can get done in a weekend, and yeah, it's just all about, you know, sort of taking care of ourselves and being kind to ourselves and so forth. So I'm quite looking forward to showing you that, doing the little sneak previews. I've been working on it for the last couple of days. Whoops, there you go. So quite looking forward to getting that out, and that will be one of our Crafty Wafty alongs, and I think I'm probably going to do it over maybe over 2 weeks. So the first week will be showing you how to make the album and the pages, and then the second week will be doing all the infills and decorating and so forth, and all the extra little tips and little bits and pieces. Right, is that following it on? No, that was coming on that way. Let's get that. There we go. That's, so again, I'm just making sure that these are lining up at the top and the bottom, and they're lining it in line with the images that have already been stuck down. There we go. And tuck that on there. That's it. I'll just pop that on there. And then our final square. And then we're literally just down to the last page, and then just adding in any extra embellishment bits and pieces that we want to add in. So we're just going to pop that on like so. Okay, so that is our page 3, and then we open that up, and that now brings us to page 4. Okay, now page 4. If you remember me saying that this page is obviously, when you go back to the first page, is the one that's going to be upside down, so don't worry about that. Now I quite like that image there. Unfortunately, I haven't got anything else on there, so let's just have a little look at those little cards that I had. This is where things start getting into a bit of a mess. You know what I'm like. I start shoving stuff here, there and everywhere because you get into that creative zone. Right, let's just pop you there. There we go. Right, so let's have a little look at these other cards. So that's quite sweet. We've got like a hey dude. Don't know if you call the man in your life hey dude. What else have we got? There's one with a nice, now the car's quite nice. I quite like that with the little hot rod. And we've got a little bit of the football there. So I think if we trim that one down. I had a slight accident with my paper cutter on that one. Oops. Happens to the best of us. And I think we might go with that one, and we'll trim that down as well. And we'll have those two on the end. And I'm liking this down here at the bottom, the sort of the metal effect and that. And I think what I might do is cut that, and so we get that coming down in the strips coming down by the side of that, just sort of colour coordinate it. Or I'm back to this one again. Actually, I quite like that one. But will I have enough to do the whole strip coming down like that? Oh, yes, I will. We're going to go with this one. Oops, nearly falling off my chair tonight. Right, okay. So again, I need to cut these down to a 2 3/4 inch square, these images. So let's have a little look here. So this is 3 inches across, but I only need to take, so I'm just going to take 1/8 of an inch off either side to try and centre that image a little bit. Flip this around. As I said, these all came off a 12 by 12 sheet, and it was the 3 by 4 cards on there. So I thought rather than waste them, we'll use them for decorating up our little album. There we go. And then right, now this is the tricky bit. So I want to keep the wheels in there, so I'm going to come down, I think, as much as I can and see how far I get with that ball, because you see that is 2 3/4 there, and that's going to take all of that off. So let's take just maybe the top bit off. Right, that, I felt that ruler move then. Let's just come in and recut that, because that didn't cut straight. I felt that as it moved. Right. Okay. Oops, put these little wispy bits in the bin. Turn it round, 2 3/4. 2 3/4. And we just lose the bottom bit of that. But I think that will look fine. I'll pop that on there. And then we've got this one at the top. So the key words that I'm after is the hey dude. So that's the bit that I'm going to concentrate on. And we're just going to trim that down. So that centres that better. 2 3/4. But again, it's all about using up your stash and your scraps and stuff. I mean, I went through my drawer the other day, and oh my goodness, I've got so many scraps of stuff that I really do need to come up with some ideas of how to utilise those a little bit more. So let's just come along and trim that one. And then we're just going to come round, and here we go, 2 3/4. Let's line that up. It's a little bit hard to see, I'll be honest, on this. I keep saying to myself I'm going to buy myself a new mat. So I might just have to do that. Right, here we go. Whoops, put my best dad bit there. Right, okay. So look at that. Hey Dude. And then we've got like the little football and the toy and that in there. So that's how that's going to go on. And then these strips here. So I'm going to cut these in one length so that they will match from top to bottom. So again, it's got that continuity of the pattern coming down. And let's just line you up. Okay. So that's 1 1/4. So I'm just going to put that there for the minute out of the way, and then we're going to cut this. So not only will it go down from top to bottom, it will also follow on left to right. Oops, that's it. Okay. So we're almost there, and then I'm going to cut this at 2 3/4. Okay, where are you? There you are. Okay, 2 3/4, and I'm just laying these as I cut that, and then 2 3/4. So we'll probably have a little bit left over on the end here, but that's absolutely fine. And then we'll just make sure we do it the right way round on the other piece, and then they'll match across, if you see what I mean. Right, okay, so that goes on like that. They go on like so, and here we go. So again, 2 3/4 coming down. Line it all up. Now they were threatening us tonight with thunderstorms. I don't know about you, it's been a bit muggy today, and but we've not had any thunder or anything, so perhaps we've missed it where I am. But this is meant to be our summer, isn't it? I think we had that back in May, didn't we? Okay, right, so now you can see how that is going to look. So again, we're just going to distress ink crown that, and then we'll glue these all down, and then we are almost done. So in all honesty, where are we now? It's just gone past 8 o'clock. So in about an hour and a half, I suppose, you got yourselves a card. And you know, using up scraps and that, you know, and decorating it however you wish. As I said, I think this would make a really cool kids card. You know, I think it's really good fun. And actually, I think this is something that the children would like to maybe have a go at as well. Making, it's quite fascinating how the whole thing works. I think you get this sort of magical card just out of using card and a few bits of patterned paper. I think it's fab. Right, okay. We are almost at the end there. Right, we're going to pop that along. Okay, like so. And then I'm just going to glue these down in place now. Here we go. All right, let's just pop this on. Voila. Okay. All right, I'll center that one in. I'm going to come across and do the top row first. And then we'll do the bottom one, so that centers in the middle there. I know, I do appreciate that it's not the easiest thing to see when you're working on black card, but I am sort of attempting there straight up a bit to leave about a 1/8 of an inch black trim all the way round. I just think it frames it. I think it looks lovely like that. Okay, here we go. I'm just popping on that last one on the top, and then we're going to come down to the bottom. Come on, glue. Almost done. And then we'll just do our finishing touches at the end. That's it. So just lining that up, that middle one. And then we're just going to pop this on. Okay. Right, I'll just pop that in on there. Like so. Again, just now on this one, I need to make sure that I'm also lining up the pattern as that's coming down as well. I just think it looks fab. There you go. Right. Okay. Right, let's just find my little glue stand. Whoops, a daisy. Tuck you in there out of the way. Right, there we are. So let's just fold that back. Right, so we are now back to the beginning. So let's just have a quick flick through and see what we think. So this is page 1. Open that up. That's page 2. I think that's well funny. What happens in the garage stays in the garage. And we've got a little toolbox. And we've got a couple of bits of tools and stuff. Then that opens up. And here we are. We've got our little dumbbells and that in there. And then we're on to the last page at the back. Hey, dude. Okay, and then back to the beginning. Now, as I said earlier, obviously that's with you having that facing you. So if I flip this over, you'll notice that that is upside down. Okay, it's just the way that it works. But this is why we've got this at the front. Now I've got here, I've already cut out Best Dad, but obviously depending on what dies you've got. Now that against that isn't going to the black in the background, but then having that blue on the top, I don't know whether that is going to make that any better, to be honest. Let's have a little look. If I just sort of mess around with that for a minute. Come on. See, the blue against the blue. Perhaps we'll just stick with the black, actually. Or I could have double mounted it, but I think that will look fine. But what I can do is maybe just to give this a little bit of extra sparkle is maybe rub over some silvery sort of gilding dust or something like that, just to lift that up, because that just needs something. Right, bear with me 1 minute. Let me go and grab, what have I got that I can use? It needs to be silvery, really. Let's have a little look. What colour are you? You're sort of a platinum colour. You might work. Okay. I'm going to have to be very delicate with this because, so just got this. It's a bit dry. I might need to just put a little bit of liquid on it. Where's my little shush? Technical words, that is my shush. That's my little water spray. Let's just see if I can get some moisture in there. This doesn't work. We'll scrap it. We'll go with something else. I just feel like it needs something. No, that's not working. Right, okay. What I have got is some sparkle shimmer mist. So what I'm going to do is, hi Jackie, welcome. I'm just going to, because this will just give it a little bit of sparkle to it. So let me just find a little bit of, get a bit of tissue. So this is what I mean by going rogue. I'll just sort of, just wanted to lift it a little bit. Right, let's move everything out the way because I know what I'm like. Right. Okay. So I've literally just zhuzhed that. I don't know if you can see. It's a bit hard to show, but it's sort of left a tiny, like, little, almost goldy effect to it. So I'm just going to give that a second to dry on that side. Now on the, just coming back to the other card, the 8x8, this one I actually made a little magnet holder, so I haven't put anything on the back because what I thought we could add to is actually just put you know, write your message on there, like to dad, sort of thing on the back, and stick that on there with magnets. If you've seen me work with magnets before, you'll know that here I've used, just because I'm just got one sheet of card and then I've just put the card on the top. I don't know if you can see, if I just, the tiny little magnets, I've put magnets in 4 corners. So obviously if you are going to use this on the front, just make sure you put your magnets in before you put your papers down on the front, so it covers them up, and then it's all done like that. Okay, but yeah, so that's what I did for that. Now if you are doing the 8x8, and I gave you the measurements before, this was 3 3/4 square on that one. Okay, and if I was going to do it on here, I would probably do it maybe as, that's not quite, maybe, see, 3 inches is I could do it as a 3 inch by 3 inch, but I think I'd probably come in and do it as 2.5 inch square, just to sort of sit on there if you wanted to put your magnets in on there. Right, okay. Oh, she says knocking everything over. Oh yes. And I've just knocked something that I wanted to show you as well while I'm waiting for the best dad to dry. We also had these. Now these were for Christmas. These were part of the Made by the Elves collection that we had in the shop. But I don't know if you can see, these are like little spanners and hammers, and they are so adorable. I mean, look how cute they are, these little spanners. So, you know, it might be nice just to maybe pop a couple of those on or something, just to give it a little bit more on the front. So let's just see how that's doing. Right, okay, so I think that's there. So now look, you can see that already. Now I've put that on there, just how much that lifts it. I'm sort of getting the, whoops, shadow of the, stick you back on there. So that does sort of stand out now. It's got that little bit of sparkle to it. We have got some of the shimmer mists and stuff in the shop as well. I think we've got different coloured ones as well. This one is sort of a, what colour is that? I think it's like a goldy colour, but it gives it a nice sort of shimmer. So I'm going to stick these on. Okay. Now, when you're doing anything fiddly like this, I'm going to be a bit uncouth, all right? I'm really sorry, but I'm going to put a bit of glue on the back of my hand. Okay. If you don't want to do it this way, then you can do this on a glass mat, but I'm just going to dab that in like so. So I've got glue on there. Okay. I'm just gonna line that up. Don't worry about the glue because that will dry clear, but I'm just going to straighten up the lettering like so. Let's bring that T up. There we go. But I know now that that is well and truly stuck. There we are. There you go, stick you down there. I'll bring you over just for whips, a fraction. That's it. Okay, there's my bit of tissue that I had. There we go, just going to dab that glue off. And the rest of that will dry clear. Okay. And then the dad bit we're going to put on there, and that will dry off in a minute. There we go. Maybe not quite as much glue, Deb. Oh no! Oh, thank goodness for that. It fell the other way up. Oh, right, okay. And then we're going to put Dad down here. Like so, and again, just going to wiggle those letters just to... There we go. That's it. And there we are. Right. And then I might just put... There's a little bit more glue on there. Let's take that off a bit. Come on. It's better. There we go. And then if I wanted to give this a little bit of an enhancement, I might could put a little spanner on there and a hammer, maybe. Is that going to come off? No, I need to cut that off. Or should I just leave it? I don't know. Now I'm going to stick them on. Right, I'm going for it. Okay. Let's just get the glue out. There we are. I'm just going to add. Now I've got, if I can put the little spanner and hammer up in one corner, I need to do something else to balance it down in the other corner. Let's cut that off. So like I said, these are really cute. You see, they would look quite... Or shall I put the little... Maybe I'll have a hammer going like so. And maybe 2 spanners up the end there. Does that work? No, maybe not. Maybe just the 1 spanner. But you get the idea. But I'm just going to stick on one of these. Right, okay. So I'm just going to utilise this glue. Let's just add a little bit of glue. Right, okay. Let's get me tweezers. Like so. Just put the little hammer. Like so. Now the glue I've used here is a bit like it's a bit like what do you call it? Glue gum glue, but it comes in a bottle. So I'm just gonna. So this will probably take a little while to dry these bits, but we are done. That's it, and then I can have that coming down like so, and then I'm just going to let those dry, and there we are. And that is my never-ending Father's Day card. So as you can see, you know, it's a bit hard to probably see in this light, but the Best Dad does sort of have a bit of a sparkle to it. And then when we open that up, you've got the second page here, and then we open up onto our 3rd page, and then we open up onto our 4th page, and then we're back to the beginning. And that is pretty much it for this evening. So unless anybody's got any burning questions that you want to ask me, then that is us sort of done for this evening. Do I give you a sneak peek of what I've been working on? Do I give you a sneak peek? Do you want a sneak peek? Okay, bear with me just 1 minute. I'm going to pop that to one side, let that dry. Right. Okay, just a quick sneak peek. Okay, that's great, Jackie. I will do. I'll put up the measurements, so no worries. That's Jackie De Silva. Oh, and yes, to love a sneak peek. Okay, so this is my next album, which is going to be the Mindfulness album. As you can see, I'm not giving anything away on the front. Okay, I've started decorating this. This is a 5 by 7 inch, and we'll just have a little As you can see, I'm still working on it. There's still bits and pieces going on. But yeah, that's it. Sneak peek. That's it. You're not getting any more. That is it. So that will be coming up in the next couple of weeks. And I'm going to be, as I said, I'll probably do that over 2 evenings. It will be a Crafty Wafty along. So you can, you know, I'll have up the instructions and you'll be able to download those from our craftywafty.co.uk website. And yeah. And that's me done for this evening. So thanks ever so much for watching, everybody. And have a lovely weekend. Let's hope the weather brightens up a bit, because it's looking really drab and dreary out there at the moment. But yes, we do want our summer holidays, that's for sure. All right, so take care, everyone. See you soon. Bye.